Welcome to my What is the Deal with series, where I play through games for the very first time and unpack both their story and their mechanics. Some are new and some are old, but the only rule is simple: I must never have played them before. No rose-tinted nostalgia here. This time we're diving into Little Hope, the second instalment in Supermassive Games' Dark Pictures anthology series. There are plenty of games sitting on my shelf that I've been meaning to play, including all 4 entries from the anthology's first season. Starting with the second story might seem a little odd, but since each tale stands alone, the order doesn't really matter. They're not so much an anthology, but more of a series of games linked by style. And honestly, living so close to the Pendle Hills, the site of England's very own witch trials, Little Hope feels like the perfect choice for this time of year. All of the games in the Dark Pictures anthology are modern versions of those interactive stories many of us grew up reading, where your choices ultimately shape the outcome. Every decision you make matters. The butterfly effect is at the heart of all of these games. A single choice made early can come back many chapters later to completely change a character's fate. Within the games, this is beautifully visualized with clouds of butterflies fluttering across the screen whenever such a choice is made. The stories themselves aren't completely predetermined. They're overseen by the curator, a mysterious, foreboding figure who serves as the keeper of these tales. He observes our progress, recording each story in his vast repository. From time to time, he'll comment on our decisions, sometimes critically pointing out what we've missed, or congratulating us when we've found something that may alter our path. He insists that he cannot interfere, yet every so often he hints that he's been permitted to offer us guidance. Who gave that permission and who might be watching him remains a mystery. As you might expect, Little Hope has many branching paths shaped by our decisions. I'll be taking you through my first playthrough, the one that I think had the most fitting conclusion, though not necessarily the most satisfying. Afterwards, we'll explore some of the other possible outcomes and how the different choices led to these different conclusions. With this in mind, there will obviously be a few spoilers. The second season of the anthology is due out next year, so before that arrives, let's dive into Little Hope. Our story begins with our bus driver finishing his break in a diner before continuing on with his journey. All instalments of the Dark Pictures anthology have common horror tropes to set off the story, and I love that they don't take themselves too seriously. I mean, every possibility has been done before. Here, the police have closed the road ahead, and they're diverting us through Little Hope. They said the name of the game. This can't be good. The driver picks up on this and seems as nervous as we do as he drives on. Suddenly, a child is seen at the side of the road, and we swerve, ending up crashing. The story shifts. We're now in a 1970s American family home, a huge home with 4 adopted children and 2 parents. We find out a lot about this family very quickly. The father is a drinker and worried about the possibility of the factory closing and him being out of work. The mother is worried about the youngest of their children, Megan, who appears to be acting out. The Reverend told her that he had to remove her from a class, but don't worry, they'll work on her. Anthony and Dennis are talking about Dennis's record collection. The mother tells Dennis to put away his worthless collection, sounding an awful lot like my wife talking about my video game collection, actually. The final cast member arrives home, Tanya, who's been out with her boyfriend. The mother takes a bath while the father opens another beer and starts watching TV, while we, playing as Anthony, explore. This act forms the tutorial, teaching us about exploring and inspecting objects, highlighted in the age-old way by glittering on the dark background. There are a number of achievements for collecting the various collectibles. Some are objects pertinent to the story, others are postcards, which are premonitions, giving us clues to avoid certain actions. We are also introduced to making conversation choices. These are all timed, and we have to make our choices fairly quickly. The game is littered with quick time events, either as a series of button inputs are a series of time responses made to look like heartbeats, meaning though even the cutscenes are long, we have to hold the controller poised for these QTEs at any time. Messing just one of these up can end up in death. No pressure then. The game saves almost instantly after each decision, meaning you can't just go back to before you made the poor decision. There is a chapter select, which I definitely made use of to get all of the endings. Back to our story. Megan clearly puts everyone on edge. She does appear to be acting rather oddly. We see her upstairs playing with a key. Anthony starts cooking dinner and goes outside because Tanya was banging on the door. We, the viewer, see Megan talking to a long-clawed creature. They think it's time. A doll that definitely wasn't there before falls into the hob, starting a fire. Anthony's locked outside. Dennis is stuck in the loft. The father is asleep drunk. Tanya is locked outside, upstairs, and the mother is locked in the bathroom. Anthony tries to wake up the father, breaking a window, but this isn't enough to save him, and we see Megan watching from the hallway as he dies. Dennis tries to climb down outside, but slips and is impaled on railings. Anthony runs back trying to save Megan, but it was too late. We see poor Anthony, the lone survivor of the fire, found by the neighbours outside, still holding the matches. The neighbour screams at Anthony, "What have you done?" clearly blaming him for the fire. Tutorial over. Our story breaks back to the present day, back at the bus crash. We're introduced to another 5 characters, each strikingly similar to our 1970s family. Each has their own distinct traits, which can evolve over time depending on the choices we make. We have our 3 younger characters, Andrew, Taylor, and Daniel, and 2 older ones, Angela and John. Notably absent is the youngest child from the tutorial prologue. Could she be the mysterious girl who appeared in the road and caused the crash? And more importantly, where's the bus driver? Andrew wakes up, dazed and confused. John explains that they're on a college trip. He's the professor and the others are his students. Andrew mentions a terrible dream, clearly disorientated by what's happening. This gives us, the player, a plausible reason for the déjà vu. Perhaps Andrew's concussion is why everyone looks so familiar to the people from the 1970s prologue. As the game progresses, control shifts between characters, allowing us to see the events through different perspectives. This not only keeps gameplay fresh, but also lets us understand how each character is processing the mounting horror. The group dynamic is tense from the start. They continually split up, giving us chance to shape different relationships and explore new areas, sometimes revisiting familiar locations through entirely new eyes. This mechanic kicks in straight away. John and Taylor help Andrew to his feet, arguing about what to do next. Should they stay at the bus or head towards the nearby town?
I guess it
Meanwhile,
fell out during the
Daniel and
crash.
Angela have
We
fallen
stay
down a
here all
slope
night?
and must find their
We're
own
gonna
way
keep
back to the
moving.
group.
See ya!
The groups move off, but only we, the player, see the girl watching the group. The camera angles are often fixed, as if we're being observed from a distance rather than participating. This creates the feeling that someone or something is watching the group, and it works beautifully to build tension throughout the story. The group of 3 soon reach a weathered sign at the edge of town. "Bad things happened here long ago," John mutters to the group, and it quickly becomes clear he's the only one who knows anything about Little Hope. Shortly afterwards, everyone is reunited and predictably immediately starts arguing about splitting up again. Daniel and Taylor decide to head back to the bus, but no matter which way they go, they end up right back with the group. After several failed attempts, they realise something unnatural is happening. The fog itself is stopping them from leaving. The only path that remains clear leads deeper into town. This becomes a recurring mechanic throughout the game. The fog locks us into a contained scenes to explore. Personally, I really like this approach. It's far more atmospheric than being penned in by invisible walls or endless "you can't go that way" messages. But don't worry, we still get our fair share of convenient place fences later. As the group steps into Little Hope, the tone shifts. The dense fog, the empty street, the eerie silence. It's all pure homage to Silent Hill, and I love it. It's tense, cinematic, and self-aware enough to nod to its influences without taking itself too seriously. As the group trudges deeper into town, Daniel shares his theory. Maybe they didn't survive the crash at all. Maybe this is some kind of limbo, and what their experiences are just the last few flickers of their dying thoughts. It's an unsettling idea, but not an unreasonable one, given what we've seen so far. We also learn a little more about Daniel and Taylor. They're secretly dating, keeping their relationship hidden from the rest of the group. Taylor, we find, has some trust issues to work through before they're ready to go public, adding a small human layer of drama amid this supernatural tension. Eventually, the group spots a light in the distance and makes their way towards it. A bar, seemingly untouched by time. Inside, the atmosphere feels heavy, thick with cigarette smoke and silence. Then, just for us, the player, the camera shifts and we catch it. A huge spear slamming into the road outside, unseen by the group. Inside the bar, the group finally meets another living soul, or at least someone who seems to be. He's calm, almost too calm, sipping his drink like nothing's wrong. The fog, the fact that the entire town looks abandoned, none of it seems to faze him. He just chuckles, calling Little Hope a ghost town. When we mention we're looking for our bus driver, he laughs again, not maliciously, but as if he knows something we don't. Then, the strangest thing of all happens. John, the professor, the one attempting to take charge of the situation, just decides it's time for a quick game of darts. Really, John? Now? Sure, it is clearly a tutorial to teach us the new targeting QTE, but still, casually showing off his darts prowess while lost in a fog-filled nightmare feels absurdly out of place. After the game, John walks around the bar. Naturally, the phone's dead because, well, of course it is. It's a horror game. And now, with nowhere else to go, the group heads back into the mist, leaving the stranger alone in the bar, still nursing his drink and watching them go. Continuing down the foggy road, the group, as they so often do, naturally splits up. Andrew and Angela wander off and stumble upon a small, handmade doll lying in the dirt, a poppet. Traditionally, poppets were used in witchcraft to represent a person, with spells cast upon the doll to influence the real individual. They weren't always made for harm, some were used for protection or for healing, but in a place like Little Hope, benevolence isn't exactly the first thing that comes to mind. As Andrew examines the poppet, he's suddenly grabbed by a screaming girl. He stumbled backwards, falling into the mud, and when he looks up, there she is. A child who looks disturbingly like Megan from the prologue, only now she's dressed in Puritan clothing, clutching the same poppet. The girl, we'll come to know as Mary, is scolded by a hooded figure who appears just as suddenly as she does. Before Andrew or Angela can react further, both vanish into the mist, leaving the pair shaken and unsure of what they've just witnessed. Rejoining the group, Andrew and Angela recount what they saw: the strange girl, the hooded figure, the poppet. No one knows what to make of it. The group notice the dark bruise forming on Andrew's arm, exactly where the girl grabbed him, and most of the group starts to believe that this Mary means them harm. Andrew, however, isn't so sure. There's something about her that he just can't shake. As they move deeper into town, the mist thickens again. We find one of the game's signature premonitions, a flash of the bus driver, terrified, holding a gun to his head. He must still be alive. For now, we must find him. Pushing further into the fog, the group spots a tattered poster pinned to a wall, The Witch of Edmonton. It's a play, based on the true story of a woman accused of witchcraft. Maybe, Andrew suggests, that explains the people dressed as Puritans we've been seeing. Angela, though, isn't so convinced. Through the mist, a lone figure appears up ahead. John and Angela approach cautiously, and suddenly an older woman screams and grabs John's arm. Time slips again. The air changes. A hooded figure steps out of the darkness, just as startled by our presence as we are by hers. When her hood falls, we see another version of Angela, fearful about our presence, but rather than Angela, it's John she's confused by. "You are no husband of mine," she shrieks before disappearing. Back in the present, Angela is shaken. She tries to describe what she saw, or maybe who she saw, but John brushes it off, insisting it must be stress or suggestion. The group, already fracturing under fear, splits once more. John, Angela, and Andrew press deeper into the deserted town, while Taylor and Daniel head in the opposite direction. John's facade of calm doesn't last long. A sudden noise from the fog makes him flinch. He stumbles into the roadside ditch, with Andrew instinctively following. It turns out to be nothing more than the stranger from the bar. Tension brews between the group again. Angela and John take turns undermining each other, and both keep dragging Andrew into their petty bickering. John snaps that Angela's always judging him. "She keeps weighing me up and finding me lacking," he complains to Andrew. It's the first real hint that these three share the same tangled relationship we glimpsed back in the 1970s Vision, the same insecurities. Another rustle from the darkness sends John bolting forward, leaping over a fence in panic. Andrew, startled by a cat, follows suit. Angela, though, completely unconcerned, takes her time, simply walking through the open gate. This switch is especially stark compared to John and Angela's argument about the different interpretations of seeing Puritan Angela, as I'm going to call her. There are far too many names already. They regroup outside what turns out to be the old police station. Every door is locked. A strange, comforting detail in a town like this. So, in true horror game logic, Andrew picks up a rock and smashes the window. We cut back to Daniel and Taylor outside the old school. The fog curls around the fencing, and Taylor's confidence starts to waver. She admits that she's not sure splitting from the others was such a good idea, but Daniel insists they'll be fine. Splitting up is such classic horror logic. In fact, John earlier said we should all stay together. Taylor eyes the high fence warily, refusing to climb it, so the pair follow the road until they reach a small, abandoned playground. The swings creak in the breeze. A child's drawing pinned beneath a rock shows a priest and a young girl. Turning around, they spot the same girl from before, Mary, standing by the play tunnel. When Daniel approaches, she vanishes inside. He crouches to coax her out. His hand reaches forward. The world tears open. The fog thickens, and we're dragged back into the 1600s. The air feels heavier, thicker with smoke and accusation. A priest looms over Mary, warning her not to speak of their secrets. Daniel intervenes, pulling the man's arm away, but the priest can't see him. Only Mary can. To him, it looks as if the child is casting spells. The priest, Reverend Carver, accuses her of witchcraft, but Mary turns the blame towards Amy, the Puritan version of Angela, claiming she saw her in the forest, speaking with her familiars. Was that the vision of Angela and Andrew saw earlier? The pieces start to line up. With that, the world snaps back, the fog clears, and Daniel and Taylor find themselves, once again, in the empty playground. The echo of Reverend Carver still hanging in the air, especially given the drawing we found before all of this. We find another premonition. This time, Angela is ensnared by chains and yanked off a cliff, her head striking the rocks below. It's a grim warning, but forewarned is forearmed, and we'll need to keep that in mind. Daniel and Taylor come across an old general store, its sign half hanging and the windows long since boarded up. Daniel spots a rusted fire escape and decides to climb up, leaving Taylor outside to keep watch. Inside, dust mites drift through the air. He rummages through what's left of the shelves, finding a newspaper dated 1973. A headline catches his eye: local minister arrested for alleged satanic masses. The man's name? Leonard Carson. Could this be the same minister who scolded Megan in Andrew's dream? Daniel picks up a keyring. Number 1 Dad. As he is about to leave, a cold hand grabs him. The world flashes white, and he's back in the 1690s. Daniel stands before Puritan John, now called Joseph, while Puritan Angela is being bound and accused of witchcraft by Reverend Carver and the town's marshal. The tension is suffocating. There is nothing Daniel or Puritan John or Puritan Angela can do. However, it is now clear why Puritan Angela said to John in the first vision, "You are no husband of mine." The 1600s version of Angela and John were married. Then, just as suddenly, Daniel is back. Taylor finds him shaken, and he tells her what he saw. They press on, only to realise they've somehow circled back into the heart of Little Hope, the very place Taylor was desperate to avoid. And then, in true Dark Pictures fashion, the camera shifts. Only we, the player, see it. A corpse-like figure, slick with mud, slowly rises in the distance.
Useful in here.
We jump back to the group of
Derelict.
3. Andrew, John, and
You
Angela,
students are all the
now
same.
inside the Little
Doom,
Hope
gloom,
police
and
station.
negativity.
The air is thick with dust,
Never mind how
the
it
flickering
looks.
light of
All
their
we need is
flashlight
one
cutting through
phone to still
decades of
be hooked
neglect.
up.
Andrew pauses, staring at the walls. He swears this place feels familiar. John brushes it off, saying
This
all
place is a real
small-town police
dump even for
stations
this
look the
shithole
same.
town.
But why would Andrew recognise it? Mounted on the wall, covered in dust, Andrew finds a framed commendation awarded for bravery during a fire at a family home in the 1970s, the same decade as Andrew's dream. Could it be that the dream wasn't a dream at all? A phone is found, but of course it doesn't work. It's not plugged in for a start, and secondly, it is a horror game. John's patience wears thin. He slams a filing cabinet in frustration, his temper starting to show through his calm exterior. His behaviour appears to be oscillating faster between extremes now. The group spreads out, searching for a phone line. Then, cutting through the silence, the phone rings. Andrew hesitates, then answers. A faint voice crackles through the receiver. A woman pleading that she's being blamed for something she didn't do. The line distorts, warps, and dies. The group exchange uneasy looks. A quick search of the old records reveals that this very site once served as the witches' jail centuries ago. The echoes of past injustice still apparently hang in the air. We're grabbed again, walked back to the 1600s. We're attending Puritan Angela's trial. Reverend Carver takes Mary to one side and warns her again not to mention their secret. The trial itself is pure chaos, accusations thrown without proof, logic buried beneath hysteria. Then Carver gives Mary a subtle nod. Mary begins to convulse, collapsing to the floor in fits. The court gasps. Puritan Angela is ordered to lay her hands on her, and just like that, Mary stops. This is enough for the court, and Puritan Angela is dragged off. Watching from the sidelines, we notice something very strange. 2 of the people with Mary bear a striking similar resemblance to Puritan versions of Daniel and Taylor. With a lurch, we're snapped back to the present. The group regroups, shaken and confused. Daniel and Taylor arrive just in time for Daniel to hand Andrew a small keychain he found in the general store. Andrew freezes. He's seen it before, in his dream. Leaving the police station, we stumble upon 2 clues in quick succession. First, a new premonition, the bus driver being arrested. What on earth is going on with him? Moments later, John finds a tattered poster for a local band featuring none other than Daniel on guitar. The problem? Daniel has absolutely no memory of ever playing in a band. The more we uncover, the less anything seems to make any sense. The group reach a half-destroyed bridge, creaking and crumbling with every step. John, Andrew, and Angela lead the way, carefully jumping the widening gaps. A sudden bird cry pierces the silence. and of course, were grabbed again. We're dragged back to the 1600s, to Puritan Angela's execution. She cries out that she's innocent, but her pleas fall on deaf ears. Horrifically, she's bound in chains and thrown into the river, sinking beneath the surface as the water closes over her. Fortunately, only John and Andrew witness this event. When they return to the present, Angela is confused and frightened. She demands to know what happened. John hesitates, but tells her the truth. Her double drowned. Angela is understandably shaken by this. Unable to progress further across the bridge, the group drop down into the riverbed below, but before they can catch their breath, a figure drags itself out of the murky water, its body wrapped in heavy chains. It's unmistakable. It's zombie Angela, the drowned reflection of her Puritan self. Andrew scrambles up to higher ground, and we're faced with a brutal choice: save Angela or John. Remembering the earlier premonition, I decide to save Angela, hauling her up by the power of quick-time events. Turning around, we see that John somehow managed to climb up on his own after all. We cut back to the curator, who congratulates us for not losing anybody yet. His tone makes it clear that outcome wasn't guaranteed. We made the right call. But for how long? We return to the story, back with John, Angela, and Andrew as they make their way through a graveyard. The path twists and turns between crooked headstones, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm missing something. Among the graves, the group discover a family plot: the Clark family. Every name matches the people from Andrew's 1970s dream, every name except one: Anthony. His absence feels deliberate. At this point, it's getting harder to believe that Andrew's opening vision was just a dream. There's just too much evidence stacking up against that idea. The quiet is shattered by the sound of something moving nearby. The group hides, and from the fog emerges the stranger from the bar, pushing his bike. He doesn't seem happy to see us. I'll admit, I may have failed a QTE or two earlier that probably didn't help our relationship. Pressing on, the group finds an old house at the end of town, and Andrew decides to head inside to see if there's a working phone. As they disappear into the garden, the camera lingers behind, and again only we see it. Heavy chains begin to slither up from a grate in the ground. Zombie Angela isn't done with us yet. We switch back to Daniel and Taylor, who are now making their way along the Witch's Trail, the kind of ominous name that never leads anywhere good. The mist curls low around the trees, and every creak in the wood feels like it's coming from just behind them. They reach a narrow, rickety bridge stretched over darkened waters. Ever the gentleman, Andrew insists that Taylor goes first. "You're lighter," he says. "Right, Daniel. Really heroic." Taylor edges forwards, the planks groaning under her weight, before Daniel follows. Just as they reach the far side, they're grabbed, and once again, we're pulled back into the 1600s. Here we see Mary in the woods, clutching her poppet. It becomes clear that Puritan Taylor has been taking and hiding the doll, trying to protect Mary from being accused of witchcraft if she's ever caught with it. Pulled back to the present, Daniel and Taylor are disturbed by what they saw. The story jumps back to John, Angela, and Andrew, just in time to see modern Mary again. John and Angela immediately want to chase after her, while Andrew hesitates. The group starts piecing things together. Could the girl that they've been seeing in the 1600s and this modern version be connected, reflections of one another across time? Angela is somehow left behind. Before she can follow, zombie Angela strikes again, dragging the real Angela deeper into the sewer. Kicking and scrambling, Angela manages to free herself and flee through a gate, which naturally she doesn't bother to close. I mean, really, why would she? John and Andrew recover from this shock alarmingly quickly and decide that now is a perfect time for a bit of sightseeing. They follow Modern Mary into the museum, a perfectly creepy choice of venue. Inside, the torchlight flickers across haunting displays. There's Puritan John's execution. This hasn't happened yet, as far as we're concerned. A portrait of Puritan Angela, a grim echo of what we've seen with her before. There are also rows of eerie, faceless mannequins caught mid-hanging that we've not seen in our vision. Andrew spots Mary's poppet sealed inside a display case. John, ever the pragmatist, decides that if Mary's spirit is tied to the doll, maybe burning it will set them free. Because nothing ever goes wrong when you destroy the only supernatural artifact in a cursed town, right? Andrew dissuades him, thinking it would just anger Mary more. Leaving John and Andrew as they exit the museum, we cut to Daniel and Taylor. The camera is watching them through a sewer grate, an eerie echo of Angela's fate. The pair find the museum and decide to sneak in through a window. While exploring, Taylor thinks she sees something and wanders off in the opposite direction. Playing as Daniel, we find a premonition of Taylor running and hiding. Daniel follows the sound of muffled voices, forcing open a locked door to find Taylor inside. She describes a vision where Puritan Taylor is dragged away by the marshal. Interestingly, this is the only vision that we, the player, don't actually see. Daniel discovers a knife conveniently lying on a table, and remembering the premonition, gives it to Taylor. Nearby, he finds a Bible covered in runes and Mary's statement accusing Puritan Angela of making the poppet. We then cut back to the curator, who cautions us not to judge the child too harshly. We have no idea what she's endured. He also congratulates us on finding the knife, cryptically noting it will prove useful. Back to our adventure. Taylor uncovers a new premonition, Daniel being attacked by a spear. So it was zombie Daniel that we saw watching them earlier. Not a good sign for Puritan Daniel. I can't help thinking that we should have left the knife with him instead. Pushing forward, the pair come across the boarded up welcome centre. It's fittingly closed. Not much call for one in a ghost town, I suppose. Hitting a roadblock, Taylor spots an old tyre swing. She recognises it from her childhood home, still painted with her patterns. Then they're grabbed and dragged back to the 1690s. Here we witness Puritan Taylor's execution by fire, with Mary watching coldly. Remembering the curator's warnings, we try not to judge her too harshly. Daniel turns Taylor away so she doesn't have to watch, but as the camera pans round, we notice something unsettling. The crowd is completely faceless. Why can't we see who they are? Back in the present, Taylor is shaken and insists that she's now next. The sound of something behind her then confirms it. Zombie Taylor is coming. A frantic QTE chase follows, and they narrowly escape, reuniting with John. The group races to an old church, passing the stranger who calmly walks by as if none of this is happening. Inside, they barricade the doors until the stranger starts banging on them. Fearing the noise will draw the creature, they reluctantly let him in. What follows is a tense and oddly grounded exchange. The group explains about the monsters. The stranger, bewildered, asks Andrew if he's hit his head tonight. He seems completely unaware of the danger. When Andrew pleads for help, crying that he doesn't think he will leave this place, the stranger replies, "You and me both." Not for the first time, I find myself wondering, "What are you doing here, stranger?" Off he goes, calmly, into the fog. The group reseals the door and takes a moment to regroup, mourning Angela and trying to make sense of everything. Daniel head up to the bell tower, where the great bell suddenly tolls, pulling us back into the 1690s once more. Puritan Daniel is facing execution, this time by Reverend Carver alone, with Mary as the witness. She pleads for mercy, but Carver ignores her. As Puritan Daniel falls from a window, modern Daniel makes an incredible dive, grabbing his counterpart's hand. Of no use. The Reverend calls it the devil's work, perhaps believing his own lies. Puritan Daniel is impaled on the church railings below. Carver declares that Abraham, Puritan Andrew, will now be Mary's keeper, the last one left. Everything is coming to a head. Daniel can't believe that he couldn't save his Puritan double. John, ever the comforter, tells him, "See your double get it? You're next." Cold, but as it turns out, not entirely wrong. Through the cracked church windows, the group spot Zombie Daniel, still crawling and writhing outside, impaled on the same spikes we saw in the earlier vision. They tried to sneak out through the back, but the silence is almost worse. The zombies, they're here somewhere. Then, without warning, Zombie Daniel bursts from the shadow. He's fast, feral, dragging himself forward on broken limbs. A frantic QTE sequence follows. Somehow, despite my terrible reflexes, Daniel and John manage to escape, though Andrew and Taylor are nowhere to be seen. The survivors regroup, breathless in the forest. John slumps down, exhausted, the weight of everything finally showing. For a moment, there's only the sound of wind and distant creaks until the bushes rustle nearby. The group turn, brace for another attack, but instead, out of the darkness, Angela emerges, filthy, missing her glasses, but miraculously alive. The joy of the reunion is short-lived. Zombie Daniel, he's back. The group split up, all running in different directions. Both Daniel and Taylor are grabbed by their zombie counterparts. Since Taylor still has the knife, Andrew tries to save Daniel first, but fails. Daniel's fate mirrors that of his Puritan double, impaled by railings, before he disappears into the fog. Taylor manages to stab her attacker and escape with Andrew's help. The remaining group reunite, shaken by Daniel's death, but forced to keep moving, chased by the horrors still lurking in the darkness. We cut back to the curator. It's better to have conquered yourself than win 1,000 battles, he muses, before performing a neat little card trick. He shuffles and lays down 4 cards, all kings of hearts. Perhaps you're starting to realise something, he says with that knowing smirk, before ushering us back to the story. The group reach a house, its porch lit by fireflies. Suddenly, Andrew and John are pulled back into the 1690s. Puritan Andrew is speaking with Puritan John about what to do with Mary. He must face the court soon. Modern John urges him to accuse Mary of evil, but instead, modern Andrew insists that the true villain is Reverend Carver, manipulating her for his own ends. Puritan Andrew hesitates. His faith in Carver as a man of God is not easily shaken. Thrown back to the present, the group debate the vision. John becomes fixated on confronting Puritan Andrew again, convinced that condemning Mary is the only way to save themselves. Andrew refuses to believe that it's that simple. Before the argument can go any further, Zombie Taylor attacks, grabbing Taylor and burning her alive. Both vanish again into the fog. John and Angela recover disturbingly quickly, determined to press on with John's plan. Andrew, though, still resolute, refuses to condemn Mary. A new premonition, John's neck snapping violently, a warning that we probably won't have to wait long to understand. The group arrive at an abandoned factory. Andrew seems to recognise the place. Outside, a campaign for Carver, for mayor. It's defaced with graffiti, turning him into a devil. Fitting based on what we know about the past version of Carver. Inside, the past intrudes once again. Puritan Andrew is confronting Reverend Carver and the Marshal. Puritan John has been sentenced to be executed. Puritan Andrew is due to speak to the court. Carver tries to prevent him, attempting to claim guardianship of Mary himself instead. Modern John urges Puritan Andrew to denounce her as evil. Modern Andrew pleads for compassion, insisting that she is the victim. Puritan Andrew chooses mercy, speaking in Mary's defence. The Marshal, unimpressed though, dismisses him and delivers Mary into Carver's custody. Back in the present, the group are divided over what's just happened, but all convinced that they can still change the past, that their salvation lies in rewriting history. While exploring the factory, John finds a plaque dedicated to James Clark, the same name from the 1970s family's graves. The dates match too. Could this be the very factory mentioned in Andrew's dream? Nearby, a photograph of the Clark family cements the connection. They're all here. Then another discovery, a photo of Vince, Taylor's 1970s boyfriend. Wait, is he the stranger? Andrew's dream wasn't just a dream, was it? Moving through the factory, the group is stopped by a wall of stacked boxes. Andrew and John decide to push them aside. To where exactly isn't clear. The boxes crash through the floor, taking John with them. Once again, the group is split. Angela and Andrew escape the factory, and Angela wastes no time in getting a jab in. The one person John can take care of is himself, she mutters. John soon reunites with them anyway, a sequence that seems mainly designed to highlight the simmering lack of respect between these two. Outside, Angela finds an old car. Inside, a newspaper clipping shows that the 1970s version of Andrew was being released after the fire, though some in Little Hope still blamed him. Before they can discuss it further, Mary appears, dragging them back into the 1690s. This time, they witness Puritan John's execution, crushed beneath heavy stones, exactly as foreshadowed in the museum exhibit. The group tries to intervene, desperately removing rocks, but it only fuels Carver's conviction. More stones are piled on until the execution is complete. Back in the present, Zombie John arrives, but John's had enough. He grabs a conveniently placed sledgehammer and swings back, literally fighting his demon. Angela, on the other hand, is done in a very different way. "I'm not hanging around to see you killed," she yells, turning to flee, only to be grabbed by her zombie double. Andrew helps John fight off his attacker before pulling Angela to safety. They retreat into a nearby house. It turns out this is the Clark family home. They barricade the door, the air thick with smoke and memory. As they search, familiar details emerge. The swing Taylor remembered is still there, the same markings painted onto the tyre. A parenting book lies open on the floor. They were trying, at least, to be good parents. Beneath a house, unseen by Andrew, zombie Angela crawls. Nearby John and Angela, there's a wedding photo. Unmistakably their doubles. Outside, zombie John lurks in the mist. Both zombies are coming for them. But why doesn't Andrew yet have a zombie? Did his double survive the persecution somehow? Smoke fills the house, and on the wall, a child's drawing of a long-fingered demon looms over the little girl. The same image from Andrew's dream before the fire. Then a letter. Reverend Carson, the same one arrested for performing satanic masses, wrote to 1970s Angela expressing concern over Megan's behaviour and offering personal instruction. It's a chilling connection. Different names, but the same patterns. The past isn't just repeating, it's looping. Breaking our knowledge of the fire, we find a key within the grandfather clock. Wasn't this the one that we thought Megan was holding before the fire started? Another premonition plays, but instead of a clue, it's a blatant advert for the next Dark Pictures game. This completely breaks the immersion. It's like the developers just leaned out of the fourth wall and yelled, "Buy the sequel!" It does mean that we're probably almost done with Little Hope, though. Upstairs, Mary appears again, dragging Andrew and Angela into the past one last time. This time, Mary herself is being accused of witchcraft. She begs for Andrew's help as the Marshal and Reverend Carver twist every past event to condemn her. Angela still believes Mary is evil. Puritan Andrew, now guided by modern Andrew, stands up for her, bravely accusing Carver instead. He goes down the stairs and whispers something to the Marshal, who demands Carver's Bible. Opening it, the Marshal finds it covered in runes, exactly like the ones we saw in the museum. The spell is broken. Mary is freed. Carver erupts in fury and flees. Mary hugs modern Andrew. "You saved me," she says. Back in the present, Angela exhales in relief. "You were right. The priest was evil," she admits. It feels like the end. Andrew steps outside, but the house begins to collapse, trapping Angela and John inside. He tries to break through the door, but it's too late. The zombies claim them both. Andrew is left alone on the doorstep as dawn breaks. Vince, the stranger, approaches quietly. "Nothing but ghosts here for us," he says, directing Andrew back to the diner where the story began. Then the truth hits. The camera pans. Andrew is the bus driver. In a Sixth Sense style montage, we see the events replay from reality's point of view. The empty bus, the lonely man in the bar, the one-sided conversations. Andrew was alone the entire time. Finally realizing the truth, he stands silent and walks out into the light. It's not a bad ending. One of two obvious directions the story could have taken. Rather than being trapped in an endless cycle, doomed to relive their fates until somebody broke the curse, the five characters were never truly separate people at all. As the curator hinted with his card trick, they were all aspects of the same person. Andrew, traumatized by the events of his dream, which must have been the real memories of the last time he was in Little Hope, fractured his mind following the bus crash caused by his distraction. The other characters were manifestations of his memories, reconstructed fragments of his family. All of the places we visited were places Andrew recognized, pulling from the memories deep within his mind. This manifests itself in the people Andrew sees: his adopted mother and father, his two sisters, and his brother. There are many other people in his visions, but these are faceless, and this is also true around the town, most notably in the museum. The fire that started it all wasn't a supernatural punishment, but a terrible accident. The key Andrew remembered Megan playing with, the one that we thought locked 1970s Taylor outside, is found again, revealing how memory and guilt distorted the truth. We know that the doors were difficult to open in winter. Taylor herself mentioned that after returning from her date with Vince. The Reverend Carson's later arrest for conducting satanic rituals perhaps added another layer to Andrew's trauma. In his grief, maybe he came to believe Megan's troubled behaviour had been caused by Carson's influence. That's why, throughout the story, Andrew defended Mary, while John and Angela condemned her, a projection of how the real family once blamed Megan for something that was never her fault. Overall, I really enjoyed my time in Little Hope. The story isn't terrifically deep, but the atmosphere more than makes up for it. It's consistently eerie, fog-drenched and tense. The voice acting is strong across the board, though a few awkward deliveries slip through, likely more of a fault of the script than the actors themselves. Achieving 100% completion demands a serious commitment. I'm on my 7th playthrough and still not quite there. It wouldn't be such a grind if the dialogue could be skipped. The playthroughs requiring all heart or all head decisions are a bit of a chore, and I'm not sure that they add much beyond another checkbox, though thankfully they are optional. The story was slightly spoiled for me by the subtitles, which labelled Vince as Tanya's boyfriend far too early, though to be fair, that twist wasn't hard to guess. One thing I did learn about myself, though: I'm terrible at QTEs. I really enjoy spotting the things that I miss while playing the game while making these videos. And two things I spotted this time was that the marshal was actually the neighbour who found us outside and questioned us on what we had done after finding us with the matches. And the executioner was the police officer who sent us through Little Hope in the first place. There are plenty of other endings depending on whether the group stays friendly with Vince and whether Mary is saved. You can find a gun in Little Hope. I didn't on my first playthrough, having failed the QTE while nervously investigating that cat. If you do find it and accidentally annoy Vince by firing near him outside the church, look, I swear I was aiming for the zombie behind him, but he doesn't know that. The story ends quite differently. At the Clark family home, Andrew is met by the police, echoing one of the premonitions we discussed earlier. If, on the other hand, Mary is condemned and the group has died, and Vince isn't too furious with us, the game ends with Andrew raising the gun to his head as Mary screams. A haunting finale that feels utterly tragic and against everything that Andrew had fought to overcome during the game. Alternatively, if one or more of the characters confront their zombie doubles and survive until dawn, Andrew and the others walk into the sunrise together towards the diner. There it is revealed that Andrew is the bus driver that we've been controlling all along as the others quietly fade away. For me, the ending where all of the groups succumb to their zombie doubles but Mary is saved feels the most fitting. Melancholy, but thematically complete. It's a terribly sad story, but not one of supernatural evil, but instead of guilt, grief, and the ways trauma rewrites memory. There's a few things that doesn't really make any sense. Why is the town completely empty except for Vince? There's one other thing that I still can't quite shake. We see the events unfold even when Andrew isn't present. How could that be if everything is from his perspective? And what about the vision we never actually witness, only hear described? Perhaps the cycle is real. Maybe these souls are bound to relive the same tragic loop over and over again until the events of the 1690s are finally set right, and Andrew is simply the last conduit, surviving each iteration to begin anew. With that thought, I'll leave you. Until next time, goodbye.